Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, all. So, in the last, we have been discussing. Uh, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
We are discussing evolution of programming languages. So, there are many programming languages. So, the first we saw is Fortran. Fortran is a programming language being developed with the aim to develop a language for scientific the calculations. So the sample program of the Fortran, where you can understand from how variables are there and how we use conditional statements and all those things. We try to understand this out of this. So this is a commenting symbol. Exclamatory symbol is a comment. So there is some comment being written here, and there are some arrays. So it is an integer array, right? Int list, int list, right? So it is, and there are some normal variables, integer double colon, integer double colon. So int len, counter, sum, average, and result. Statements are not terminated by semicolon. Notice it. And this is simple assignment statement. Result is 0. You don't have to understand the program, just understand how variables are this. Right? Sum is also 0. It is the assignment statement, right? So notice there is no semicolon used here to terminate each statement. But list of variables are separated by the commas, and it is a declaration. Double colon is being used. So type of the name of the data type integer, double colon, and a list of identifiers. So read statement, read star semicolon. I think it is a read statement. So it reads a value that you supply into the list len, right? So then there is a conditional statement used here within parentheses. List len is greater than 0. And so these two conditions are connected by logical and. So this connecting symbol you see here dot and dot, right? Dot and less than 100. Then then there is a comment read in data into an array. Right? So it is a counter do counter equal to 1 comma list len. So it is a looping statement. It is a looping statement. So do counter equal to 1. What is the next last boundary and last uh, it has to be repeated for 1 to up to the length of list length. These many times it has to be loop has to be repeated. Then if int underscore list counter greater than average, then result is result plus 1. And if this is a end, so instead of using opening the curly brace and closing curly braces, we have here and if do and do. So it is a do is a looping statement, right? So like for while, so and do and if and do, right? So there is no opening. There is no opening. statement, right? Like begin kind of statements, right? So print star comma. So what is the thing we are getting? Number of values greater than average is this. Right? So whenever in a list, average is been the counted here. Average sum average. We're not trying to understand entire program. So what we did here, we are reading reading a element, and trying to add that element into the to the sum. Sum is initially zero, right? So element is read into this, and sum is calculated, and then after that average is computed. Average is computed. Then if average is the average of average is good, average is less than element, less than an element in a list. Just it's one kind of then result is one. So how many elements are there in a list which is greater than average value of that list is the intention of finding here. Right? So it is a printing statement, print star comma, and statement, the message that you want to see on the screen is enclosed in single quotes, and the value that you want to get following this is written following comma. Okay. So and if else is also there, else if capital, you notice that all are beginning with a capital letter. If else, right? Print, read, and if end of the program example. Right? So now this it is sample the Fortran program. We don't have to understand it. Just notice that how variables of loops and conditions are mentioned over there. There is one more the programming language. So that is right, Lisp. So Lisp is mostly used in artificial intelligence. The first functional programming language is a first functional programming language invented to provide language features for list processing. Lisp stands for list processing, right? So the some portion of list, and P stands for processing. The need for which grew out of the first applications in the area of artificial intelligence. So in the artificial intelligence, the strings are to be processed directly. For that, Lisp or Prolog are suitable languages for making some inferences out of the known statements. So begins of artificial intelligence and list processing. Interest in AI is the kind of the story in the mid of 1950s in a number of places. So the concept of list processing was developed by Alan Newell, JC. There are some three scientists. Then it is to process the list of elements. So contribution of Lisp programming language is majorly on to design programs to design applications of Lisp. So what is this? See this. Lisp programs rarely require these operations. Lists are specified by delimiting their elements with parentheses. So what we mentioned inside parentheses is a list. Is being considered as a list, not in curly braces in this case, right? So it is a list of elements. Elements are not separated by commas. Notice it. So in which elements are restricted to atoms have the form. Lists are specified by delimiting their elements with a parenthesis. Simple list is this. So nested list is nested list. List within a list is also possible. So what is there? It is the outer list. So BC is the inner list. BC is inner list, and then uh, FG is a inner list, and then FG is inner list of FG list. So list within a list is also possible. Is composed of four elements. How many elements? One, two, three, four elements. Nested list structures are all specified by parentheses. For example, the list like this. How many elements are there? Though we are able to see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but with regard of this list, there are only four elements. A element is sublist, A element, a list containing element and a sublist. So altogether, we consider these as a four elements. Those elements are in turn is a list. It's composed of four elements. The first is an atom, right? So list is being considered like this is a collection of atoms, right? Or the list of atoms. The second is a sublist, BC. It is an atom. It is a sublist, right? The third is an atom, D, and the fourth is a sublist, which has its second element, the sublist, FG. Internally, lists are stored as a single linked list structures. So, how internally these lists are stored? So, for us in a programming language, simply we mention A, B, C, D like this, but internally its structure uh, would be more complicated to represent. It is the headache of the programming language constructs. Right? So internally lists are stored in a singly linked list. So concept of single linked list, we know. So these elements are organized, managed together into a list uh, as a as a by making use of single linked list structures. So we know single linked list in which each node has two pointers. We know concept of single linked list, right? So each node has two fields, right? The one of to make a link, to form a link or to form a list, uh, right? Uh, every node has to be linked with other node, or if it is the last node in a list, that has to be terminated there itself. So you can understand the internal representation of two lists as shown in the diagram. We are able to see. So it is, what are the elements we saw? A, B, C, D. Right? D is the last atom in a list. So a node is being created. We don't have to do all these things. So it is the beginning of the list. List is containing atoms A, B, C, and then is a link to this, and then is a link to this atom node, and is a link to this atom node. There is no E, therefore it is terminating. Right? It is internal representation of mm, list A, B, C, D. Right? So we have another list also. A is a atom, and these two. This is actually a sublist. Right? This node is holding pointer. Uh, this has to represent sublist, right? Four elements are there. First is the atom straight away, and then this is a link to the another sublist containing B comma C, as you saw in the above example. And this is again atom, right? This is address for the memory location. Then this is address for this sublist. It is again holding two addresses. One is to address B and to address C, and interconnecting the sublist. So A sublist and D is atom and this E, and then again it is sublist, right? So it is internal structure a representation of lists, list within a list. It is a normal list. Straight away it is another list, but that list has sublist. Understood? So but in C language, to form a single linked list, we have to write a lot of code for making this kind of representation. But in case of list, the uh, headache is being taken by the designer of the programming language, right? For us, we simply use this kind of list. That's it. We don't have to think. We don't have to write anything for this. We only have to understand the syntax of Lisp. The Lisp is very different from imperative languages. Both so Lisp is AI related, therefore it is processing language, uh, uh, or the relational language. Right? So languages are we saw in the last class, categorized into logical, right? So that logical, imperative, and declarative. It comes under this. Right? It comes under declarative part. Now Lisp is different from imperative languages, uh, both because it is functional programming language and because appearance of Lisp programming is so different from those in languages like Java, C, C++. The syntax of Java is a complicated mixture of English and algebra, while Lisp syntax is a model of simplicity. Program code and data have exactly the same form. Parenthesized lists representation is like this. When interpreted as data, it is a list of four elements. When viewed as a code, it is the application of a function named A to the parameters A, B, C. So everything is interpreted and understand in form of list. So see, this is one kind of the program written in Lisp. So if you understand from the basics, we'll understand Lisp programming language. It is for processing lists, right? Now and then there is another variation. Right? There are some successors of Lisp uh, with improvement with with the existing programming language. Right? Now the sophisticated programming language, first step towards sophistication. So user-friendly kind of English-like language, the kind of design had much influence on subsequent programming languages. Algol 60 has much influence on subsequent programming languages because many features many features in the languages which we read, which we know, have been taken from Algol. So Algol was first of the efforts to design a universal programming language for scientific applications. So it is a kind of history. So we'll see one example of the syntax of this. A few statements we need to remember, and then we have to know uh, something about every programming language. So Algol 58 requires a assignment state. What is the form of assignment statement, right? The Fortran we have like result equal to sum, right? So we have in Algol assignment operator in a rather unusual way, right? So this is expression towards arrow. Arrow is there now. The meaning of this is the expression is evaluated first, and then that result is stored towards in this variable. For the assignment statement in Zoox, flying call had not yet been published. So this is unusual for some the kind of the people who know a few who are already aware of some programming languages. Therefore, they did some the variation in those statements. So other way, left hand side is variable colon equal to expression, right? So and this is further improvement in algol. Then the whole statement was turned around to the Fortran form of the variable. So European preferred opposite form, but that would be reverse of the Fortran. Because Fortran is already there, people are already aware of the syntax used for representing evaluation statements. So similar kind of syntax, if exist with subsequent the programming languages, it would be comfortable for those the people, right? So therefore, it is turned into the uh, Fortran like the kind of statements. Otherwise, it was first like this: evaluate expression a plus b equal to arrow y. That means a plus b result is to be stored into this. Is the meaning of this? So then we have some concepts. We have some program. I try to understand this. So it is a small program for Algol, written in Algol. For doing so, the similar operation that as we saw in the Fortran program is being tried here. So we have a beginning of the program, right? These are comments. Comment begins, right? And then begin is a beginning of the program. As we have main where our C program begins, the begin is a keyword, right? Then after that, list array is being declared. Name of the array is int list. So indices are 1 to 99. So ranging from 1 to 99, 1 colon 99. You notice that we have here square brackets. And we also notice that this statement is terminated by semicolon, whereas in Fortran we did not see that. So type of this int list is an array of which type? Integer type. Okay. So integer array is a keyword. Right? Because array is like it is C the kind of statement. So integer is a normal variable, list length, comma, counter, comma, sum, average list. Notice that every line is terminated by semicolon. It is assignment of the variables. Assignment statement is been reversed it, right? So earlier it was zero arrow to sum, but it is been reversed. Sum colon equal to zero and result colon equal to zero. It is normal understanding. Now we have to read variable. How to read? Read int. Read int is a statement, right? So int len, list len, read list len. So we'll enter something, and if list len is greater than zero, so it should be greater than zero, right? And less than 100. So notice that instead of using dot and dot, we have a cap, right? So it is a conjunction symbol. It is a conjunction symbol. You are aware of it already when you studied mathematical foundations, right? Then, then it is also a symbol we use for bitwise operations. So it is end conjunction symbol. So you know how we know that how this is going to be operated. So this is evaluated first. If it is a true, then only there is a possibility for this entire the statement to become true. That is based on this. If it is elevated false, then no need to go for this. Then is a keyword. If condition, right? Then keyword, and then the begin of if, and this is the right, and then is a comment line. So for it is C like kind of statement for counter equal to 1. So increment for loop by step 1. So next it becomes, it is like I equal to I plus 1, counter equal to counter plus 1 until list len, right? So it is uh, loop is going to be repeated till it reaches list len. List len is how much? It is allowed a maximum of 99 because we have array 99, right? So it should be less than 100. Now then do. So what are the keywords? Big for step until do, then beginning of the for, and this is the end of the for. So what is being done inside this for loop is read a element, read a element. So that element you are trying to read into array, right? What is the counter? Index first index 1, and then add that to the sum was made for this instance. When counter is 0, sum is made 0, right? When counter is 1, sum is made 0. So we are adding it to this, right? These two statements are repeated until this condition is satisfied, right? So we'll know some of the list of elements. So list is entered every time, right? That what is been entered is going to be read into the array, right? Then it is a comment, average colon equal to sum by list len. Count of the list we know already. Then the intention is whether this average is less than list value. Average is less than list value. Then do some operation. How many elements are there which are less than which are greater than the average value in the list? So that is the one. So if int list counter, again for loop is been prepared. Uh, this is greater than average, and then this, and then this, then, right? So it is no need to afraid of this. It is looking like English like the statements. It is more similar because we know already the concept of programming languages like C, C++, Java. It is more the familiar looks more familiar to us, right? The- Now, yeah, it is algol, right? More sophisticated, more friendly in the programming languages, right? So you see that the many features that we saw are like the features we studied in other programming languages. So it is the state of it, right? Operational. Do this, and then see the result. The other kind of programming language is like for business oriented, computerized business records, for maintaining business records. Right? And this is common business oriented the languages. COBOLs. You can find abbreviations of this common business oriented languages. This COBOL. So we'll see. It is a bit difficult even to understand the COBOL because we are not familiar to the notations and syntaxes, to the statements that we saw, that we see, that we are going to see in the COBOL. Right? We looked the with familiarity with the statements in algol programming language because it is simple, but it is not going to be so in COBOL. Right? We'll try to see some more programming languages and come across how those notations and statements are there. Okay. So we are what we have to see. Then COBOL. COBOL is right now. COBOL, first so this we'll see historical background of this. The history of COBOL is, in a sense, the opposite of Algol. So I made a statement already that it is bit different. Although it has been used more than any other programming languages, COBOL has had little effort on design of subsequent languages, except for PL by 1. PL by 1 is one the programming language. Then beginning of COBOL is somewhat similar to the Algol. Uh, right? Then the origin of problematic. We'll see the syntax, you'll understand. Design process. If you see the evaluation, a diagram in that we saw for where we have all programming languages and which language is the descendant of which language, the diagram we saw in the last classes, evaluation process. Right. So this is there are some sections in COBOL. The following is an example of the COBOL program. This program reads a file named val fw, balance file, because it is business, the financial maintenance, the related programming language. It is more suitable for that. That contains inventory information about a certain collection of items. Among other things, each item record includes the number currently on hand. Val on hand is a variable, right? The program produces list of items that must be recorded as a file named recorder listing. Right. So there are more restrictions in it. So identification division. So left side, exactly in the left side, identification division should terminate by colon, right? Program ID, colon, and procedure recorder listing, colon, right? There are more restrictions in it. So the first line, the first indented uh, what justification, right? We see sometimes. So we cannot write this. We cannot justify. We cannot shift this towards this right side. We should write there itself. So it is going to be the other division, environment division, right? There we have to define uh, the configuration sections, and then source computer, and then object computer. Right? So this is the input output section, and then there is one more section inside this environment, input output section, and then file control, right? So more restrictions are there. You may feel the comfortable if we study an entire COBOL, but as we are only looking at the features, feeling difficult. Select BAL forward file assigned to reader, right? Select the record listing assigned to local printer, right? And then select a recorder listing assigned to local printer. So data division. So what is that? Input output section and then data division. Environment division and then data division. So file section. Inside that file section. What is the file we already mentioned to select is this val forward file. So that file is going to be selected, right, and assigned to the reader. So FD, uh, val forward file, label, records or standard, record contains 80 characters. Right. So record is a kind of, what is the size of the record? So it is, these are the, so this numbering is compulsory. That, and then the shifting right is also compulsory. You cannot write this exactly on this line. So indentation is to be followed perfectly with regard of this. So it is uh, the kind of, so there is, right. So we have to write there itself. Indentation is compulsory. We cannot shift left. We cannot shift more the characters right while writing this. It is not. It is as we can write the C program statement anyway. We can shift right. We can shift left. We can write in the middle, right? It is very free form. So COBOL is of such programming language we can use where inventory management and where the business oriented kind of the processing is involved much. Right? So we'll see some more the features of some other programming languages, right? Then you will feel comfortable when we see the features of C, C++, and Java because we know them, right? Right. So I'll close with this. Thank you. So please take. I think you might have taken snap of attendance. I think who sent Sai Kiran sent me. Please. Thank you.